able to teach you some new things and also let you know a little bit about what a career looks like in sport management. So you'll notice that there is a chat function. So please, if you have any questions as we go along, go ahead and hop in the chat. We're also going to be very interactive in this discussion today too. So make sure that you're ready to go when it comes to some of the questions that I'm going to ask you. We'll have some polling set. So without further ado, let's get started. So I think many of you may know this already, but one of the points of pride that we have here at Ohio University is that we're consistently ranked as the #1 postgraduate sport management or sports administration program in the world. And if you look up on your screen, you'll notice a gentleman over there tossing a baseball. That is Walter O'Malley. And Walter O'Malley is the former owner of the Brooklyn and then later Los Angeles Dodgers. And back in the 50s, he was looking for employees to join the Dodgers organization that had not just a business background, but also a sport background. So he went across town to his buddy, James Mason, over at Columbia and said, hey, can you do this? Can you train our students to actually understand both sport and business? And James Mason said, absolutely. And said, but I'm leaving for Athens, Ohio to take a position at Ohio University. So do you mind if I take the idea with me down to Athens? So that was the start of this field we now call sport management. So we're really excited and we are deeply rooted in the sport of baseball and the history of Walter O'Malley. You can see up on your screen too, I want to brag a little bit about some of our wonderful alumni that we have in the program. It's a virtual who's who of sport professionals. One of my favorite statistics I like to share with students is that we have the most Division I college athletic directors in the country. So you can see around the screen here from the bottom left, the commissioner of the ACC, John Swafford, to the bottom right, Bernard Muir, the athletic director at Stanford. We have 3 athletic directors in the Pac-12 alone. So we're really excited, from Derek Hall, the general manager of the Arizona Diamondbacks. It doesn't matter if it's professional sport, collegiate sport, national governing bodies, odds are there's a Bobcat within the organization. So let's get the chat going here and let's talk a little bit about what the field of sport management looks like. So you can see one of my favorite movies on the left there, Sandlot. I want you to think back to when you were probably 8, 9, 10 years old and mom or dad decided to kick you out of the house and said, hey, you got to go to the park. You got to go figure out something to do. Get off your devices. You're not playing video games today. Go play, right? So you look at the Sandlot, you think, you know where I'm going with this, right? You got to find a way to be able to play some sports. So what are some of the things that you probably do when you leave your house? Well, probably you're going to go next door to your next door neighbor, knock on the door, and get somebody to come join you, right? It's not fun to necessarily go to the park and play by yourself. So you start rallying the neighborhood, right? Let's say that we're going to play the game of baseball. So this is where I want you to start to get involved here in the chat. Go to a park, big grassy field. You've got all of your buddies ready to play a game, okay? How do you get your game started? What are some of the things that you need to think about to be able to play this game of baseball or stickball? So let's see some answers here in the chat. Tell me, what do you need? What are some things that you need? And what are some things that you need to consider as you decide to play a game of baseball? And I've got the dry erase board up here, so I'm going to jot down some of your answers. All right, so thank you. Our first one is going to be equipment, okay? So somebody's going to have to bring a bat. Somebody's going to have to bring a ball, right? What are you going to do for bases? All right, we're setting field parameters, right? So somebody might have a ball cap and say, hey, I'm going to put my ball cap as our right field and our left field line. Might grab somebody's t-shirt and those are going to be our bases. So you figure out and you sort of jointly figure out collectively with your teammates what your field is going to look like. Okay, very good. So you got your equipment. Everybody's probably bringing their own mitt. If they don't have a mitt, odds are you're probably just swapping them in between innings. But now we've got enough to be able to play. So who's calling balls and strikes? You guys call up the National Umpire League and get them involved here to come on over and be blue and stand behind home plate? Probably not, right? you're probably going to be calling balls and strikes on the honor system. You're going to be doing that on your own, right? Now what happens when somebody disagrees? I'm safe. No, you're out. All right, what happens? Right? Yeah, you're making the rules. And sometimes you're making them as you go, which is the fun part about it, right? Is you're making rules up as you go. You handle all conflict resolution out there, right? Now, we all have that friend, and hopefully you weren't one of them, that said, you know what? If it doesn't go my way, I'm taking my bat, and it's the only bat that we have, and I'm going home, right? Hopefully you don't have those people, but again, you're making the rules and you're doing conflict resolution on the fly, right? So I bring this example and this story up to you just because we were event managers back at 8 to 10 years old, right? We were operating and running our own sporting events. Sure, we fell in love with the game. We participated as an athlete, but make no mistake about it. If you look to the right, that's an example of somebody who is working and developing all of the structures around a major sporting event. And that's what we do in the field of sport management. It's the business of sport. So all those things that you learned on the playground, all those things you learned on the park, all right, those are things that we bring to life in the classroom. So let's test your knowledge. Let's get the polling going here. My first question to you is, what is the largest revenue source, all right, the money, bringing in the dollars for spectator sport? So when we talk about spectator sport, we're talking about events that you go to, all right? So events that you go to. Okay, I see the polling coming in, and we're all over the place, which is good. Good deal. All right. As you can see, the answer is media rights, but certainly second place with sponsorship and merchandise, 13%, and then nobody picked gate revenues or ticketing, all right? And we're going to address that one here in a second. So according to PricewaterhouseCoopers, a big accounting firm, by the year 2020, the sport industry is going to grow to close to or over $80 billion. Okay, so you can see up on this graphic up on the screen, media rights, or CBS's big contract with the NCAA and March Madness, which I know you're all watching right now, or the NFL's contract with dang near every single media source, right? That is the number one revenue source. But what I will tell you is that in the past, as prior to 2018, the number one revenue source were tickets, right? People actually purchasing tickets to go to the games. Now, you and I might think about tickets and think about, paying, $50 to go to a Major League Baseball game, right? Well, if you really look at the price of tickets, it really runs the gamut in terms of what league that you're going to be looking at. We'll talk about that here in a second. But before we do that, I want to give you a little bit of outline of what we're going to be addressing today. These are seven areas that we think are the key drivers of the sport business industry. These are revenue sources. These are all career opportunities. So again, when you're looking for opportunities to be able to work and you say, hey, you know what, I'm an extrovert. I want to be out there. I want to be selling things. I want to be in front of people. We got a job for you. If you're an introvert and you're like, you know what, I want to be behind the scenes. I want to wear a headset. I want to be making sure that the ball gets tipped on time and the popcorn is hot and the Coca-Cola is cold. We got a job for you in sport management too. So let's test your knowledge again. I think we know intuitively that the National Football League has the highest average attendance per game in professional sports simply because they play in large stadiums. So I want to know what professional sport has the second highest average attendance. Is it the NHL, the NBA, or Major League Baseball? We got all three sports going on right now too. Major League Baseball is going to be, opening day is upon us. NBA is rolling, the NHL is going, and our poll is closed. Major League Baseball averages 29,000 a game. And again, I kind of tipped you off a little bit on that one when I talked about how the NFL has the largest stadiums. Intuitively speaking, we think of Major League Baseball stadiums as having fields with at least 30,000 in attendance, or at least seats. And NBA and NHL, of course, are in indoor arenas where 15 to 18,000 is typically the norm. So first thing I want to talk about here is tickets, right? The number 2 revenue source when it comes to professional sports. So tickets we oftentimes call the lifeblood of sports, because again, for so long we've relied on the fact that consistent people coming to our games, season ticket holders, right? Folks that come with their Boy or Girl Scout troops to games, right? That helps fund our operations. So you can see on the left, and you think back to the last time you went to an amateur or professional sporting event, odds are you probably purchased a ticket in one of these 5 areas, right? If you were just casually going to a game, you bought an individual ticket. You went with the group, you went with your church group, you went with your Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, group sales. Your family decides to dip their toe in the water a little bit. You like going to games, but you can't really commit to going to 50 games a year. So you buy a mini plan, and maybe that mini plan has one particular opponent that you really want to see. So, I grew up in Wisconsin, so my team are the Milwaukee Bucks. I love seeing Giannis, but as a kid, Giannis wasn't there. My favorite team was the Portland Trail Blazers. So my parents bought a mini package so I could see Clyde Drexler come, probably a name you've never heard of, but nonetheless, that was my draw. And that's one of the big draws that we see in ticket sales. Of course, then we have season ticket sales, the people that purchase every single game, and then finally premium seating, the luxury boxes, right? Where a lot of the money is made when it comes to tickets. And oftentimes those are purchased by companies, corporations to be able to use for hospitality. And if you were curious, you can see over on the right, 2017-18 attendance recap numbers. You can see where Major League Baseball and the NFL sit compared to NBA and NHL. So our next question, what sport broadcasting deal is the largest? All right, is it CBS? And as we're watching March Madness on the men's side, TNT, TBS, and True are also partners in this package. We've got ABC and ESPN who are showing the March Madness tournament for women's basketball right now. Mentioned before the National Football League and Fox, CBS, NBC, and ESPN, a lot of different avenues. And that's not even considering some of the social media platforms that are broadcasting National Football League games. And then finally, ESPN, TBS, and Fox. And when I put Fox, you can see I put in parentheses network affiliates. So if you are a baseball fan, odds are you're watching your baseball game on some sort of local Fox network. So if you're up in the Cleveland area, you're probably watching Fox Sports Ohio. If you're in Oregon, Fox Oregon. But those are certainly affiliated with the network. So polls are in. And looks like we correctly got it right. 88% said Fox, CBS, NBC, ESPN, and the NFL. It is a $6 billion a year net for the National Football League with those 4 networks combined. And not surprising, historically football has been played on Sunday afternoons, and now we see Thursday night football. We've had Monday night football since the 1970s. We're finding more and more ways to make sure that NFL is accessible to the fans. So we mentioned before, media is the number 1 revenue source for professional sport. And you can see on that top right slide, we're projecting it to be $23.8 billion in revenue for professional sports by the year 2022. You might have heard of the Nielsen ratings before, right? The Nielsen ratings are basically these this research that is done to see what eyes are on what television sets on a 10 to 15 minute cycle. So Nielsen ratings for sports, for live content, is in high demand, right? In high demand. I don't have to tell any of you that you're probably using your Amazon Prime or your Netflix or your Hulu or your app, whatever sort of OTT streaming device that you use. Professional sports typically is still on good old-fashioned cable. That's starting to shift, but nonetheless, sport properties and live content, we don't care if it's a Division III lacrosse game. If it's sports and it's live and it's on TV, odds are somebody is going to watch it, and some network is going to be able to scoop that up. And you can see in the bottom right there, it is the economic engine that helps drive what we call the commercial sports ecosystem. Good. All right, so let's test your knowledge again. Sponsorship and advertising. Two words that you've probably heard a lot of. And if you've taken some business classes in high school, you might be familiar with this. But I want to know if they are the same thing. All right, same thing or similar things. And it looks like from the polling, some of you think that I'm trying to trick you here. Believe me, professors, we never try to trick you on our exams. All right, sponsorship and advertising are the same thing. And of course, that is false. All right, that is false. And let me tell you why. All right, so advertising is some sort of call to action. So when we advertise something, you think about, Ronald McDonald over there on the right, advertising something on television like the McRib, right? It's showing you enticing pictures and saying, da 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 da, come on into McDonald's and get a McRib, right? I'm sorry if you choose to do that. That's probably not your best decision today, but nonetheless, it's a call to action. Go buy a McRib. Sponsorship, as you can see from that definition, rights to affiliate or directly associate, right? So we're not necessarily making a call to action, but we're being present with it. So think about the last time you went to a professional sporting event and you looked around that stadium or you looked around that arena. Odds are, if you went to a hockey game, you look around the dasher boards and you see all of those ads, right? Some companies you probably never heard of. And let me tell you, if you've never heard about them, that dasher board is probably not directed to you. You're probably not the target audience of that one. There's probably some place on that dasher board that's targeted towards you. But advertising does occur at professional sporting events. So when there's a timeout, right, or in between quarters or periods, go look at the Jumbotron, you might be seeing traditional advertisement. But nonetheless, sponsorship and advertisement are sold by professional sport organizations, by college athletic departments, and we're seeing this be a huge revenue driver even in the high school space. For those of you high school student athletes here, look around your soccer pitch, look around your basketball court. Odds are you're probably also seeing some sponsorship of some local places, or maybe your conference has some sort of affiliate with maybe a university that wants to advertise at your school. All right, testing your knowledge again. What is the largest North American stadium? Okay, I want to know what the largest North American stadium is. Fun fact, Ohio University's football stadium is called Peden Stadium, not Ohio Stadium. So that's sort of a trick there. All right, good job, everybody. You are correct. Michigan Stadium. And if you look at the top, and I'm not sure if anybody is cheating here. I should have probably told you at the beginning, put your smartphones away, put your, just focus on the computer screen here. But nonetheless, if you look at the top 10 North American stadiums, the majority of them, if not all of them, are college stadiums, right? So Michigan has a capacity of 107,601. Right? Ohio Stadium is close, Penn State Stadium, there's some stadiums in the SEC. But by and large, when we look at professional teams, NFL teams, outdoor stadiums, we're looking in that like 50 to 70,000 range. So the Big Ten seems to dominate when it comes to attendance, when it comes to having seats in stadiums. So I bring this up for those people that may want to work behind the scenes. We've got a job for you, and it's called facility management, right? Running and operating stadiums and arenas. And if you think about it, the last time that you might have been to a stadium or arena pre-COVID may not have been for a sporting event at all. Could have been for a concert, could have been for a rodeo, could have been for a trade show. Maybe you went to a Comic-Con or something at a stadium where you got to walk around, and basically that event was there because there's so much space and so many concession stands and restrooms to be able to accommodate large crowds. But facility management is a big component of sports administration. We need to make sure that we have people that ensure that the referees are there on time, that the teams get there, get to their locker room and are accommodated, because ultimately as sport managers, we want to make sure that the athletes, the coaches, all the participants, all they have to focus on is basically what they're going to do on the court, the pitch, the field, the track, right? Our job is to handle everything else and make sure that it is all smooth. So you can see, I'm not going to go over all of these pieces up here, but nonetheless, we generate a ton of revenue, not just in our games, but we try to generate revenue by bringing in more and more events, because these stadiums, these arenas are multi-million and now multi-billion-dollar entities. So we need to make sure that that asset is working for us, because there's no point of having an asset or a building that's not going to generate revenue. So you could be behind the scenes, and I had the pleasure, I do some public address announcing. I get to call some pretty cool sporting events, and I transitioned that public address work announcing to working some concerts. So yes, I have been the voice of a One Direction concert and a Taylor Swift concert and a Rolling Stones concert, if there are any parents in the room. All right, testing your knowledge again. So we talked a little bit about ways that we can generate revenue with our stadiums. A lot of the events that I have up here are not necessarily in stadiums, but maybe in big outdoor spaces. I bring this up also because many sport management students may not necessarily want to work in sport, but they want to work in some sort of event and facility management. So what is that largest outdoor music festival here in the United States? I can't wait to get back to these. You can see Summerfest up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Coachella in California, Lollapalooza is going to be in Chicago, Grant Park, I believe, coming up this year, South by Southwest. Sadly, one of the first events to be canceled when COVID hit us last year, and then Firefly in Dover, Delaware. All right, so the polls are in and people are thinking Coachella. Well, I hate to disappoint you all. And again, I tipped you off on this. I gave you an Easter egg by telling you where I'm from, all right? Wisconsin originally. It's Summerfest in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Summerfest grounds are a mile along Lake Michigan. And every single night for 2 weeks, they have a headliner plus like 6 to 10 stages that have smaller acts that are going on. Certainly Coachella is something that, an event that we're all familiar with. Lollapalooza is certainly another one, South by Southwest. Firefly, you may not have heard of before, but Firefly, we actually send our students out to Firefly on a yearly basis. We have a arrangement with an event management company, and they recruit our students to go work those concerts, pay for them to work it, get to stay on site, as well as get transportation out there. So events is a big part of sport, but it's also a big part of just operating facilities. So you can see things that you need to consider when you're managing events are, sound, visual cues, touch, smell, taste, amenities. Think about the memories that you have from going to sporting events and how that develops your affinity for your team or for your arena. I have fond memories of growing up going to County Stadium in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for Milwaukee Brewer games, right? I have tons of great memories. It was a dank stadium. It was pretty junky, falling apart even back when I was a young lad. But nonetheless, I have so many wonderful memories of how bare bones that stadium was, and it helped develop my affinity for the Milwaukee Brewers. You can see on the bottom right, subfields of event management I mentioned before of concerts, but don't just think of these arenas as putting on concerts and sporting events, but think about it as a wide swath of opportunities. We want to make sure that we fill up that venue on a consistent basis to bring in revenue for our organization or for our city. All right, I know it's almost dinner time here, and I brought up the McRib before, so we're also going to choose another questionable piece of meat here. What is the average price of a hot dog at a professional sport game, specifically Major League Baseball? And we're not talking Dime a Dog Night or Dollar Dog or Dollar Brat Night, which are great promotions. And I hate to tell you, but I've probably been a lot like you, where I've gone and gorged myself on hot dogs. And you got it, $4.95. That is the average price of a hot dog at a Major League Baseball game. Okay, and if you're curious, average cost in 2019, beer is $5.97, so $6, and a soft drink is $4.60. You think about how much it costs to produce one 32-ounce Coca-Cola. It's about a nickel, right? With the syrup and the water, and probably the packaging costs the most, but you can see that profit that's going to be going back to the organization. But oftentimes concessions Food, beverage, and retail is outsourced. We hire, sporting organizations hire entities to come in and handle that all for them, right? So they don't have to worry about it. They don't have to hire people in the kitchen. They don't have to worry about the health code violations or any of those issues. It's oftentimes outsourced. But think about the options that you have when you go to a sporting event. You know, no longer is it just popcorn, hot dog, Cracker Jack, and a soda, but you know, San Francisco was one of the first baseball stadiums to serve sushi. And you might go to Kansas City, and when you think about a Kansas City Royals game, you're going to be getting some good barbecue down there. So fans are expecting more when it comes to concessions, and 40 to 50% of those dollars that fans spend typically go back to the organization. We also think about retail. We also think about branded merchandise. And this is one of those, this is what makes sport unique. There's not a lot of products out there that we willingly purchase apparel and then serve as an advertiser, you know, for an organization, right? So you wear your San Francisco 49ers shirt or Miami Marlins shirt, right? You are, in a sense, showing your brand awareness or your brand affinity, but you are also advertising for an organization. And actually that's been quantified to, it's like a fraction of a penny of exposure for advertising when it comes to merchandise. But nonetheless, I digress a little bit. Branded merchandise is a significant revenue source with food, beverage, parking, and all of the other things. So, you know, when you go to a sporting event, it's not just buying that $5 to $50 ticket, but it's everything else that's going to make up that entire cost and package for your experience. My next question is, as marketers, we want our fans to be emotionally connected to a team, but being too connected emotionally can be problematic. All right, what do we think on that one? Might be teeing you off on this question here, right? All right. Good. So yes, there is a limit. There is a limit. And, but as marketers, we sometimes don't think about that limit, right? We want fans to be diehard. We want to make sure that they're buying season tickets, you know, starting at individual, but moving up to season tickets. We call it moving up the escalator. So we get them hooked and then getting them to buy more and more, and, you know, then buy the apparel and be our advertisers for us and stay connected to that organization, right? So, but where does the bad come into play? Well, the bad comes into play sometimes with the influence of, with crowds, group diffusion. So you think about, there's been a ton of studies out there looking at, you know, sociologically speaking, when you're in a crowd, you might make decisions or do things that would be very different than if you were individually at an event. So somebody might throw something out on the field, and you may not ordinarily do something like that, but because everybody else is doing it, we fall for this peer pressure. And believe me, this is not something that this has been studied. We've seen, you know, this negative effect that this has had, you know, on soccer fields in South America, you know, from Big Ten games where students rush the field and cause property damage. You know, we're doing everything we can, and that's a sport manager's job, to try to subside that and to find ways to be able to, you know, ensure that that these behaviors don't happen. Some of my favorite studies when it comes to looking at fans really looks at fan identification, how we identify with our team. So I'm curious, in the chat, why don't you throw out some of your favorite teams, right? Favorite professional teams. I want to know, what are some of your favorite professional teams? I tipped you off. My favorite teams are the Milwaukee Bucks, Green Bay Packers, Milwaukee Brewers, and because I'm here in Athens, Ohio, I'm a big Columbus Blue Jackets fan because we didn't necessarily have one. So, all right, we got the Washington Capitals. All right, go Caps. All right, we got the Bengals and we got the Browns. We got some natural rivals right there in the AFC North. And we got the Jazz and the Seahawks. All right, very nice. We got some In the Buccaneers, yeah, well, hopefully you're not a fair weather fan here with the Buccaneers. If I would have asked you that before, like 2 years ago, but maybe you're also a Tom Brady fan, and that could help build your affinity. And then we got the Cowboys and we got the Bulls. So we got a wide swath. Now, when your team wins, so let's say the Buccaneers, right? When your team wins, think about how you describe it to your friends or your family when they win. Do you say that, wow, Tom Brady is amazing and the Buccaneers are awesome. I'm so glad that they're on my team. Or do you say, we won the Super Bowl, right? Of course, if you notice, I use the pronoun we, right? So I am now identifying and associating with the team like we're one and the same. Well, that's a psychological phenomenon we call burging, basking in reflective glory, right? We're drawing our self-esteem based on something that is completely outside of our control. So going back to my poll question, you probably have realized that, yeah, we can maybe take that a little bit too far. Now, of course, there's a phenomenon if your team stinks, and I don't know if we got some, you got somebody who mentioned the Cleveland Browns and the Cincinnati Bengals, and big Joe Burrow fan here, but nonetheless, your teams have not been that successful recently, right? They've had a history, no doubt. The Bengals in the 80s, the Browns before that. But do you still say we when they lose? Or do you say they lost? They're a bunch of bums. They're horrible. I'm going to go find a new team next year. Guess what? You're not. You're going to stay loyal to your team. Yeah, Seattle Mariners, labor of love and disappointment. Man, that is the West Coast version of the factory of sadness, no doubt. I think the Mariners, if I'm not mistaken, and David, you can correct me on this one, but I think that they are the longest drought when it comes to the playoffs in Major League Baseball, at least, if not all of professional sports. But nonetheless, yeah, never been to the World Series. Yep, someday. There's always this year, right? Until 30 games come in and you're in too big of a hole to be able to come back from that. But I'll be rooting for you. I'll be thinking about the Mariners. But nonetheless, do we use the pronoun they? Right? That's a psychological phenomenon we call corfing, cutting off reflective failure. Right? Those bums. And believe it or not, for fans like the Seattle fans or the Bengals fans or the Browns fans, there's another phenomenon called burfing. It kind of sounds gross, but basking in reflective failure. So we actually take pride in the fact that our team stinks, right? And we carry it around with us like a badge of honor, right? I use the phrase factory of sadness. If you're a Cleveland Browns fan, you're familiar with that phrase, and you wear the fact that they have been historically bad recently as a badge of honor. And you get upset when bandwagon fans join your team the next year when you start to win and you start to make the playoffs, right? Again, you don't have this same love, affection, loyalty to a product like Tide detergent or Crest toothpaste. So this is one of those things that makes sport unique. Our product is a service, and our service is connected to emotion. All right, our next question is, true or false, sport organizations are oftentimes a part of large governing bodies with complex policies and authority lines. And what I mean by authority lines is structure of, manager, leader, top to bottom. All right, looks like all of our votes are in, and you all got this one correct. Absolutely. This is true. Sport organizations are oftentimes a part of a large governing body with complex policies and authority lines. Think of the Olympics. Think of how complex the Olympic Games are and how you have to come up with rules that every country who participates agrees with, right? So if we think about something like the Olympics, right? You've heard the IOC, right? And then you've got these things called national governing bodies, right? National governing bodies. These national governing bodies, basically, every country has one related to a particular sport. So if we look at the national governing body here in the United States for basketball, it's USA Basketball. Track and field, USA Track and Field, right? You get where I'm going with this, right? And then we have international federations, right? So these international federations are the rulemaking body for the sport across all lines. So FIBA, FIFA, right? So I won't go and I won't bore you with all the details of all of the structures in place with the Olympics, but that's probably our more extreme example. In professional sports, a lot of people will think that professional sport organizations are a lot bigger than they actually are. Sport organizations are relatively small. Oftentimes they have about 100 employees. You have a CEO, you have a GM, you have a lot of folks in sales and marketing and event and operation management. But of course, when you think of a team like the Miami Heat, you think there must be hundreds and hundreds of people that work there. It's actually pretty small. And one thing that you'll learn here at Ohio University, and you'll learn from our alumni, is there are a lot of organizations and businesses that you've probably never heard of that help serve sporting organizations that don't work for the organization, but are contracted out to be able to fulfill a service, like I mentioned before, with concessions and parking and sponsorship. Learfield IMG is a wonderful example at the collegiate space. Learfield IMG basically handles sponsorship for hundreds of colleges and universities around the country, right? So you can see up on the slide here, depending on the level, and again, many of you may have played high school sports before, but that's a pretty big bureaucracy too of rules. And you might be familiar in your community of a team that might have been disqualified for some obscure rule, or something didn't go somebody's way because of some sort of inane policy or procedure. And of course, in sport, there's opportunities. If this is something that excites you, we tell our students to go on to law school next. They want to be agents. They have to understand the complexities of policies and procedures. If they want to work in NCAA compliance, they want to make sure that, teams are following the rules. There's oftentimes a space. And of course, if you're going to, work your way up in a sport organization, which if you're looking at us, I'm pretty sure that you want to work yourself up in an organization, you're going to want to understand how to be able to develop good policies and procedures. Okay. So those are the big 7 when it comes to sport business. That's my name, that's my email address, and that's my cell phone, right? You're more than welcome to call me. You're more than welcome to text me, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have right here. I would say, good luck in your college decision, but, I'm a Parks and Rec fan, big Ron Swanson fan, and luck is a concept created by the week to explain their failures. So a little bit of a joke there, but nonetheless, we trust the fact that you're making good decisions, and we hope that you'll consider coming here to Ohio University, because I wanted to give you, again, a little snapshot of what a class looks like here, and also what you can expect in this sport business degree. All right, so I'll open it up. If anybody has any questions, you're more than welcome to pop them in the chat, and I can answer them. I barely got to use this nice dry erase board. I just put the word equipment up there. So hopefully that didn't distract anybody as we went. Do we have any questions? So of course, I mentioned before that sport management is awesome. See you in Athens on April 2nd. Let me, we'll see you. And I know we're going to be going out for coffee on April 2nd. So great, looking forward to that. But I mentioned before that sport management is in business here at OU. And the statistics out there, when you look across the country, you'll see sport management programs are almost at every single college or university. Only 20% are actually in schools or colleges of business. And in our program, we do actually require you to either pick up a double major, a minor, or a certificate. So we want to make sure that your skill set is ready to go. Many parents, many students will ask me, well, tell me, what are the sport management classes that are out there? Say, take any business class and just put sport at the front of it, and odds are we have a class for it. A unique class we have are ticket sales, right? We have a ticket sales and systems class because many of our students will go to work in that area. But we have sport event and facility management, sport law, sport marketing, right? Revenue streams. What do most graduates do after getting a degree? Great question. We are very proud to have an extremely high success rate 6 months out of graduation. Over 90% of our students either have gainful employment or are heading to graduate school. Right now, about 30% of our graduates will go into some sort of sales position, right? So they may work in ticket sales. Really excited, went for coffee with one of our students A couple days ago, we walked across campus socially distant. He's so excited because he gets to go work for his Cleveland Cavaliers, his hometown team. So he'll be taking a position there. We send a lot of students to the Milwaukee Bucks. It's like a feeder system with us, which makes me pretty proud. I'm sure you can imagine, but sales is such a critical area when it comes to being successful in sport. Because even for those students that want to be that Division I college athletic director, you're still going to be selling something. You're going to be selling to a donor why they should open up their checkbook and write a big check to your university to help fund that new student center or the new locker rooms for the team. So sales is such a vital skill for our students, and many of our students will get a Shea Sales Certificate here, which is absolutely amazing, and again, a big pride point here in the College of Business at Ohio University. Is analytics growing as a concentration for sport majors? Yes, it is. So ticket sales is 30%. Event management and operations is next up when it comes to employment. And data analytics is fast growing. Every single year, that number increases. It's increased so much, not only do we offer a sport analytics course, but we've actually required now a new sport data strategy and innovation class. Because let's face it, not every one of us is really into the math behind it. We may not necessarily get that geeked out about R and Python and learning how to program, but every manager needs to be able to use data to make decisions. So we've added this required course in our major, which we believe is the first of its kind in sport management programs, and we'll be rolling that out in the fall. Would you get that exposure via math class or a focused course in the sport management program or the business school? A very easy co-major is analytics here. So you will take QBA classes, qualitative business analytics courses. Like I said, we do have sports-specific analytics courses, but you'll also take some general business courses. And there are some prerequisites when it comes to calculus and mathematics, as well as computer science that are involved in these programs. So if this is an area of focus, we have those opportunities. And we do have one of the best sport management scholars in the country when it comes to sport analytics, in Dr. Liz Wanless. Dr. Wanless is a research lead in the country on machine learning, and she will actually be the lead instructor in our sport analytics class, as well as our new sport data innovation, data strategy and innovation class. Trips, experiences, we've got a ton of them. So I mentioned before about Firefly, and that's really exciting because, yeah, we'll send sport management students out to go work Firefly in Delaware, but we also have a festivals, events, and entertainment management certificate. So a certificate is basically a fancy name for a bunch of classes that we package together that are from different majors, but all fit some general theme. So if I don't know if I want to work in sport, but man, I could see myself running concerts or expositions or something in the retail or hospitality space, I should say. That certificate is there for you. And we have a lot of event management experiences where our students will get to go out to the Kentucky Derby. We're really excited. We just sent an email out this morning to our students for applications to attend the Kentucky Derby to work. We're going to be sending students up to the Ryder Cup in Wisconsin. And if you've met with me before, you know that it's a pride point to say that we're going to get to send 50 students in a charter bus, free of charge, and they're actually going to get a paycheck to go work the Ryder Cup. We send students for the Super Bowl. We send students out to a West Coast trip where they get to do live consulting projects with San Diego clients, including the Padres, and then make their way up the West Coast to meet with folks up at Nike. We have a global consulting program in Germany where our students get to work with Adidas and Puma out there. So we have a ton of opportunities, not only for our students to study abroad, to study locally, but also we bring those projects to the classroom. So it's wonderful that our faculty, many of them have written a textbook, and we'll use those textbooks in the classroom, but we also bring the industry to the classroom as well. So in our senior capstone class, we actually call it Bobcat Sport Consulting. And in this class, our students are put in a group of 4, and we'll have a real live client project that we as faculty go out and contact our alumni and folks to be able to give us. So our students are doing everything from name, image, and likeness stuff, making recommendations for colleges and universities that are looking at how they can leverage the name, image, and likeness of their student athletes in recruiting, to sport gambling. If you've done a little bit of research on our website, you know that we are a thought leader in the sport gambling space. And when I say a thought leader in sport gambling, we're not teaching you how to bet, right? But rather we are developing the systems to make sure that when state by state sport gambling becomes legal, that sport managers are prepared for all of the risks that are involved. If you remember the name Tim Donaghy, Tim Donaghy, the NBA official that was altering games because he had money on the side, right? We're training our sport managers to be able to recognize the signs of things like that, among many other things. So yeah, so those are, we have a ton of trips, ton of experiences, ton of in-class projects that we do. It's a very, vibrant program. We have a ton of student organizations. Our students are go-getters. I always, when I meet with students, I tell them, if you got a little fire in your belly, you're going to fit in well here, because we have students that are very competitive to be successful, but work so well together. Because when you look around the classroom, odds are the people that you're sitting around are the ones that are going to be the ones that are going to be your network when you get older. I think back to when I was a student. Some of the folks that I went to school with are now some of my closest friends, and some of the folks that have helped me achieve career success. Do students really run the Copperheads by themselves? So the Southern Ohio Copperheads was started by one of my predecessors, Dr. Andy Kreutzer, Doc K. And Doc K knew that Central Ohio, or southeastern Ohio, I should say, needed something for its residents to do, because when college is not in session, things are very different here in the summer times in Athens. Some would say it's relaxing, but we wanted to be able to provide not only an opportunity for our students to be able to learn sport management, but also to provide something back for the community. And we have a college wooden bat league called the Southern Ohio Copperheads, where our students run it from soup to nuts. All right, they sell the tickets, they do the public address, they do the marketing, they do the promotion, they do the event operations, they do the finance and budgeting and accounting. It is an entire organization that is run by our students. Many of our students will choose to stay during the summertime and do an internship with the Copperheads. But I love it because it's a learning lab. So we're not bringing in thousands and thousands of fans for minor league baseball here. We're bringing a couple hundred. And if a student wants to try a promotion and that promotion isn't successful, that's a teachable moment. We learn something. And we're not going to discourage you from trying to do some promotion that you really believe in. And of course, you're going to have a good story either way if your promotion was successful or not when you go and interview for a job. That's a great question about consolidation with baseball. So you probably saw in one of my previous slides, Pat O'Connor. Pat O'Connor is the retiring CEO of minor league baseball. He just stepped down this past fall. Proud Bobcat alum and somebody who has been very supportive of our program. No doubt, when he comes and talks to our classes, he talks about the consolidation of minor league teams. And we're a little bit insulated because ours is a college wooden bat league. We're not affiliated with a professional or a major league baseball team. We typically will get kids from colleges, including Ohio University, as well as others in the Midwest. And we actually draw some kids from Florida that come up to be able to sharpen their skills during the summertime. So it will not, that's a great question. We will not be affected by consolidation, but there are a lot of communities that have been, and that's a shame because, sport, when we talk about how pricey and expensive a ticket is on the high end for the National Football League, we believe in making sport accessible to all. And the Copperheads is a great example of that. And minor league baseball is an affordable package for kids and families to be able to experience sport without having to take out a second mortgage on their home. Great question. how competitive is it to get in? Great question. So we are in the College of Business, so we do have some entrance requirements in terms of grade point average. So you can speak with your admissions folks and they'll talk about automatic entry into the College of Business, or if you so choose to come in undecided, you can apply to get in. But again, there's a GPA requirement on campus. It's the nice thing is if you achieve the grade point average, you get in, right? There are some schools that may take only the top 300 students, the top 300 GPAs. Ours is you meet the benchmark and you get in. And we make no apologies for that piece, because we want the best, right? We want students that are going to be serious, because we have a moral obligation to make sure that if we're going to give you that sport management degree, you're going to earn that sport management degree, I should say, that you're going to be successful in it. You're not just picking this major because, oh, I like sport, it looks like a fun career, but you realize, hey, I'm going to have to pay my dues. I'm going to have to really work some great internships and do some experiential learning to be able to be successful in this career, because it is a competitive market and we know that. And that's why we do everything we can as a faculty, as well as our staff here in the College of Business, to ensure that you have those opportunities. Is lacrosse picking up as an industry for grads? Absolutely. So the National Lacrosse League was also one of our capstone projects that our students were working on. And of course, lacrosse has historically been a Northeast sport that's starting to trickle into the Midwest. It's been in the Midwest now for 15, 20 years and is growing and picking up steam. So yes, we do look at as lacrosse as an industry, a growth area. Our executive director of our Center for Sports Administration, Matt Cacciato, is a former Syracuse lacrosse player, so he reminds us of this all the time. These are great questions, by the way. These are great questions. And again, I've given you my cell phone. It's up on the screen too, so if there's something that hits you, and don't feel intimidated by texting a professor, right? I mean, you can ask me whatever you want about the program. If I don't know the answer, well, I should know the answer about the program. But if you ask me a question about what dorm should I live on campus, I'm starting to learn that. I believe that West Green would be the correct answer for College of Business students. West Green, best green is what our students say. But I will definitely find the answer if I don't necessarily have it. But as you can see up on the screen, there's my email address. I'm very responsive via email, and I'm always happy to reply via text or have a phone conversation if you are so inclined. And I know that when I look at this list, I recognize some students that I've met with. I also see some students that I will be meeting with soon. So I'm really looking forward to the opportunity to be able to interact. And I see a whole bunch of names here too that I haven't met yet. So hopefully we'll get a chance to be able to connect, and we'll be able to get you down here to Athens. Well, very good. Well, I appreciate this opportunity. And again, take care.